And our third speaker will hear from Peter. Peter?
Yeah, hi everyone. Thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm coming to you from snowy, cold, 20-degree Denver, Colorado right now. I appreciate being here with you all. As mentioned, I'm with Colorado CarShare, and what I'd like to do is give you a bit of an overview about our organization, some work in car sharing we've been doing for a number of years, kind of what we're up to right now, and then how we've both been impacted and are responding to the current crisis. So, as I'm sure pretty much all of us can relate to, 2020 was a pretty huge year that included, at least for us organizationally, some relatively significant seismic shifts. So, first and foremost, we had to survive the crisis, which we've done so far, knock on wood. But if that wasn't enough, we decided, oh, this would be a great year to do a complete name and rebrand. So we were up until then Ego CarShare and recently relaunched as Colorado CarShare, while also really moving significantly into our electrification efforts and expanding more substantively into lower and mixed income community areas, which has always been a part of what we've done, but really wanted to amplify that moving forward. So Colorado CarShare is actually 22 years young this year. We've been bootstrapping our finance to get car sharing going for over 2 decades now, and we are Colorado's first, only, and one of the nation's longest running car share orgs, probably actually one of the nation's few remaining nonprofit car share orgs. And our mission is really to empower our community to live a car-free lifestyle and have that positive impact on our individual and collective health, wealth, and shared environment. And as an organization, as a nonprofit, we do that with kind of a two-tiered approach. So on one side, we have our education, outreach, and advocacy around non-single occupancy vehicle mobility options and what those other alternatives can look like. And then in tandem, we have a car share service that we provide basically to our 3,500 or so members around the Denver metro region, and access to about 50 vehicles fleet-wide, which I'll get into a little bit more here. So as mentioned, we're all around the Denver metro, in the county and city of Denver, downtown and other areas, as well as in Boulder County, which is where we were founded. Traditionally, so obviously we've been doing this well before EVs came along. So traditionally we've always focused on super fuel efficient and, for example, hybrid vehicles, which are the majority of our fleet. But we also have specialty vehicles like our all-wheel drives with ski racks and bike racks and pickup trucks and things like that. And the idea being that in many cases we can be individuals or families' second or third car, so they don't have to have those additional vehicles on their own. So one of our goals has always been to really connect car share locations with complementary mobility options nearby, and through, in particular, partnerships really support mixed income communities where, for example, transit can be the backbone of that area, but we can come in and complement those alternative additional mobility options, or in the case where maybe transit doesn't readily exist, be a primary focal point for mobility options for people who can't or don't want to own their own vehicles. And a big part of this is operating, for example, in affordable housing areas and multifamily and senior units, for example, where in many of these cases, public transportation might be subsidized through other means, and then we can kind of come in and provide that, complement that with our own discounts, which can include the likes of, and often do in many places, waived application fees, car share credits, and significantly reduced car share rates and membership rates, for example, over what our free market rates are. So our journey to electrification really goes back to about 2017 when we commissioned a graduate student to really help us think about what a roadmap to electrifying could look like, both internally in terms of our own, operations and financial constraints, but also externally in terms of partnerships, locations. We don't own infrastructure, so what do those charging station partnerships look like? And then really we launched in around 2019 with our first couple of EVs with the goal to be the nation's first nonprofit car share organization, really with the intent to help to create a successful and a scalable model that can be replicated elsewhere. And now we're at 12, we're about to launch our 13th EV. And so that's now putting us at about 25% or so of our fleet. So it's not all happening at once. As I mentioned, we're bootstrapping everything as we go along. So it's been a slow but a great journey. So a part of this, as I mentioned, includes a lot of partnerships with local other nonprofits, organizations, municipalities. We're launching an amazing partnership with the city of Denver, where we are, and this is being supported through the CARES Act, where we're launching electrified car share programs in about a half a dozen underserviced communities. And that's really meant to be a part of the pandemic relief, recovery, and resiliency efforts. So we're super excited about that, and really our goal here is to combine the social equity, the sustainability, and the resiliency efforts in these communities that may not otherwise have inclusive transportation options, particularly if an organization like ours wasn't servicing in those areas. So as mentioned, and as with many orgs, we were hit really quite significantly with COVID-19, to the point where, going back to last March when lockdown first hit, we pretty much lost about 90% of our revenue nearly overnight, which that then resulted in a variety of emergency measures, cost-cutting measures. Fortunately, we were able to save all of our staff. I basically became an emergency grant writer, and implemented a variety of other things. But one of the things that we discovered through that process, and although it's still anecdotal, we've really seen it, particularly in certain geographic and socioeconomic areas, which is that we became a lifeline for many of our members. So through all of that, we managed to recover relatively well, knock on wood, so far. And I think that maybe a part of it is to the detriment of public transit, because folks still have not, to an extent, returned to that. Whereas through a lot of cleaning and additional measures with our fleet and our communications, they have been okay with returning to car sharing services, for example. So a big part of our own recovery, as well as really activating a safety net for our community during the pandemic, this effort included, offering free to extremely discounted credit for the likes of medical and healthcare and other frontline workers, volunteers, and really for our community's most vulnerable members. So really trying to support them through all of that. To ensure that we're meeting our mission and serving our community, we really track and survey constantly numerous data points around like use, demographics, income level, how well we're doing, and a variety of other touch points, so that we can really measure our own success, but also help to educate the public and our other partners. So for example, you can see in this slide where the majority of family household incomes who are CarShare members are at or below inclusive of the $50,000 to $74,000 family income level. But also keeping in mind that we operate in the open market. So we have individuals and families with higher income levels who choose to car share for other reasons. And we work, of course, with other organizations, businesses, nonprofits, the local university, and municipality departments. You can see here, we also track and find it very important to see what impact we're having on since people became CarShare members, have they increased their use of public transit or walking or biking, so that we can really see that what we're doing is complementing other modes of non-single occupancy vehicle ownership. And along with that, we try to track reduction in pollutants like carbon and other pollution emissions. So ultimately, we feel that we're having a significant impact. If you look at, and this is both from the education outreach standpoint, but also from a service perspective. So like if you look at these impacts on this screen, which is on a per round trip car share station basis, and then multiply that by our 50 plus vehicles and 3,500 members around the Denver-Boulder County region, you can see that we're having a pretty substantive impact over the last couple of decades. And we feel that this is especially true and important in those lower and mixed income community areas that we operate in, where transportation options might be limited if we weren't operating in those areas. And with that, I will say thank you and turn it back over.